Reddit, what's the most ultimate petty revenge you've seen or been a part of? Crossing at a busy downtown intersection, a very impatient driver waiting to make a turn honked at a lady pushing a stroller. She had the right of way. I slowed down, but the guy next to me straight up stopped in front of the car, then bent down to retie his shoelaces. I used to work at a pizzeria. There was this one customer that everyone hated. She was rude as hell, complained about everything, every single order she ever received. She found something to complain about. And she wasn't a normal customer. No, she would order essentially groceries from us by ordering disassembled sandwiches. For example, she'd order a chicken sandwich, but with all of the ingredients separate, and in particular amounts, with cutlery, butter, a side of grated cheese, 3 plates, oil, and vinegar on the side, medium rare toasted bread, whatever the duck that means, extra packets of ranch. You get the idea. But because it was all technically part of a sandwich, she didn't expect to be charged for any of the extras and would complain. She also refused to answer the door when delivery drivers got there and instead would leave the money in an envelope, exact change, no tip under the doormat, and wanted the driver to leave the food on her doorstep. She also had weird specifications about where the driver could park, never in her driveway, only on the street, even when it was raining or she'd complain. Also, she didn't want them to announce their arrival in any way. No knocking, no ringing the bell, no beeping their car horns. They needed to be silent or she'd complain. Ducking nightmare, this woman. And every time she complained, she'd try to weasel some free shit out of us for next time. Because of ducking, course she would. Anyway, one day she says she needs the driver to make change, and she wants him to just leave the change in the envelope and not take a tip because he gets paid already. So I tell my driver this, and he says, "Oh, I get paid, do I? No problem, I'll take care of it." He goes on the delivery and comes back pleased as punch. Doesn't say a word about how he took care of it. I get distracted, keep working. 10 minutes later I get a phone call. It's the crazy lady and she's furious because apparently my driver left her the correct change of $5.85 in the envelope like she asked. In pennies. Ducking genius. I had to put her on hold so I could laugh. I get back on the phone with her and I said, "Ma'am, I think you'll find that pennies are legal tender. There's nothing I can do." After explaining that I am, indeed, the manager and the highest authority present, she got fed up and hung up on me. That driver is still a ducking king to me. My dad had an old truck parked on the back of our property that some kept stealing small parts from cap, rotor, points, etc. We wired it to an electric fence power supply. One evening we heard a bunch of yelling and swearing and went back there, and the guy left us some free tools. My family used to own a farm that backed up to a high school. There was a thin tree line and a small fence at the edge of our property. One year some kids hopped the fence really short chain link 1 maybe 2-3 feet and stole an engine out of the old dump truck. Another time some kids broke all the windows on the combine. A lot of kids liked to hang out in the woods back there and would constantly leave trash. One of my uncles finally fed up with this shit, started going out there with a 12 gauge full of salt shot and would shoot at them. Now I didn't believe that last story for the longest time until I started hanging out with a guy who went to that HS. And he was telling me a story about how he and his friends would hang out in the woods behind the school to smoke and drink. Until one day some crazy old guy come out and started shooting at them, tagging my buddy in the ass with salt shot. I just looked at him dumbfoundedly, then started laughing my ass off. He said, "It's not funny, man. That shit hurts." After I regained my composure, I explained to him that that was my uncle and he probably deserved it for trashing the place and trespassing. I was dating this girl, thought she was the one, so I gave her the keys to my apartment. I worked late for my job. I was just happy there was someone in my bed. When I got home at 2 in the morning, came home one night and she was awake. She confessed to using my apartment to cheat on me with 7 different people. So I packed her stuff up. She was still living with her mom anyways. So I lied to her and said I moved to Seattle. I moved to Hawaii instead. 3 months after being in Hawaii I get a phone call from her. I answer, and to my surprise she's called me from the Seattle airport. She flew out there to try and fix things between us. I answer, and to my surprise she's called me from the Seattle airport. She flew out there to try and fix things between us. I answer, and to my surprise she's called me from the Seattle airport. She flew out there to try and fix things between us. I answer, and to my surprise she's called me from the Seattle airport. She flew out there to try and fix things between us. The dialogue goes as follows me. So you're in Seattle? Huh, yeah. Weren't you listening? I came here to fix us. Me. Oh. Well, that's bad. Huh, what's bad? Me. I'm in Hawaii. Then hung up the phone. Phone rings. I answer her. You lied to me. Me. Huh, how does it feel? I hang up again. I don't know if that's petty, but to me was a good revenge. My mom and dad. This happened when I was in my late 20s. My mom and I were in the car. My dad called, and they started bickering with each other. My mom got irritated and hung up on him. He called her right back, and when she answered he hung up on her. Didn't even say a word, just waited for her to pick, and hung up. It was so petty and hilarious to see my parents acting like children. I couldn't stop laughing. They've been married over 35 years. I still get tickled when I think about that. I saw an ad for a work from home type job. It didn't sound scammy and sounded sort of legit. So I asked for more info from the website. Enter your email thing. It was crap and was sending me spam several times a day. For whatever reason blocking it didn't work. I got annoyed one day and answered back, "Stop spamming me." The guy actually answered. He actually monitors that address. He told me to unsubscribe, which did nothing. After about another week of it, I came up with an idea. I took his email address he answered from and added it to his own list, then signed it up for any other spam I could find. A few days later it stopped spamming me. Delivered pizzas about a week for my best friend's shop. Warned me about a few customers, but one in particular was always rude to the drivers and never tipped. Lucky for me, I got to deliver his order of a single calzone, maybe $6 or $7 total, and he tried to pay with a $50 bill. All the menus in the website prominently said nothing over a $20 bill for deliveries, and he'd been their customer long enough to know that. But when I told him this, while explaining how I didn't have enough change, he got extremely rude and was loud about how it's not his fault and that drivers should always carry enough money on them. So I did what any person in that situation should do and told him not to worry about it and I'd pay for the order. For those few seconds he thought he'd won a free calzone by being a dick, until I pulled it out and started eating it as I walked back to my car. Of course he fed me the whole time I was walking, but damn if that wasn't the best tasting calzone ever. Every year I go away for 2 to 3 weeks to work in a different location. One summer when I rotated through, my usual supervisor took some time off. To cover the 3 weeks they brought in a person from outside of our group to supervise. I was working my ass off, doing my work, and what should have been the supervisor's work. We were set up in a temporary office, with no connections to the outside world. We had plenty of work, to keep us quite busy though. The supervisor's day consisted of playing solitaire all day on the computer, and then yell for an hour at the end of every day that work wasn't getting done fast enough. 2.5 weeks in, and I had enough. I deleted the shortcut for solitaire off of her desktop. Pandemonium breaks out. She lost her ducking mind. I had to swear that I did not delete any programs from her computer, which was completely accurate. I watched her over the next few days I was there, do any and everything to get a connection, so she could download Solitaire. She even tried to get AOL working on the machine, so she could dial up and get it. Sharing a holiday home with some friends and their 10-year-old son started to be a pain. Not helping around the house, and crying if he didn't get his way. His parents decided to just let him sit and watch YouTube on his iPad instead of disciplining him. So I logged into the internet router and would use admin privileges to suspend his device from accessing the internet. As soon as he got up to ask his dad for help, I would reactivate the device, so it seemed as if nothing was wrong. I did this every day for 2 weeks. I mailed my shitty ex-best friend an envelope double stuffed with glitter and a note saying, "I know what you did." I wasn't referring to anything in particular, but she lies about practically everything, so it was enough to mess with her for a while. Me and a few workmates were at an Italian restaurant for a leaving party when I had to go toilet. Came back and carried on eating my pizza. Turns out one of my colleagues poured the chili oil all over my pizza, and that sheet set my mouth on fire. Plus I'm not a big fan of heat anyways, so I basically had to write off a slice of pizza. Anyways, the guy that did it found it hilarious, and since he covered his food in the same oil, I figured he'd have oily fingers from the bottle. You've got something in the corner of your eye, Columbus left. I went completely red and didn't stop watering for about 15 minutes. Being the youngest brother, I would only get hand-me-downs. My older brother rubbed it in my face that he got a brand new pair of PF flyers after Sandlot came out. Every day, I would stuff the toe of the shoes with tissue paper, adding a little more each day till he thought he outgrew them. Got slightly worn PF flyers after about a month. My roommate and her so loved doing elaborate jigsaw puzzles. After I found out she cancelled our lease, leaving me 1 week to find a new place to live, I threw away one piece of 2 different puzzles they were working on. Before you ask, she was able to do this because I was 17 and not able to legally sign a lease. Edit, I'm a she. Dad was on a boat, mom was. IDK where that crazy girl was at. Everything turned out cool. I'm married and am a mom to an awesome little girl. I don't know why the adults in my life let things go down like that. Maybe cause we live in a certain southern state that rhymes with Malabama. Edit, stupid phone. Late and not as sophisticated as most, but I started in a new job 2 years ago and hated a guy that kept joking about me. So I got his phone number and announced his PS4 for sale for like $50. Same day during lunch he was already nuts because of the calls. OFC he found a way to remove it, but it was nice to watch. I lived in a cheap crappy apartment with roommates and we all worked in fast food. Money was tight. One roommate ended up unemployed for a few weeks and then got a job as a bank teller, making much better money. However, while unemployed she had missed a rent payment, which we had scraped together to cover for her. 2 weeks into the new job she gets her first paycheck. Obviously we are expecting immediate payback. Day 1 she says something along the lines of she couldn't do personal business cash her check during work, so she could pay us in a couple of days. The Friday she was supposed to pay us, she comes home with a big shopping bag and casually mentions she can't pay back rent yet because she had to buy new work clothes. When roommates and I got upset she went total beach on us that we didn't understand how to work a professional job because we were only food service and basically told us we would get our money when she felt like it. That weekend she misplaced her nametag required at work. She spent hours searching for it. At some point, I came across the nametag in a random spot and said nothing. She kept searching for it all weekend and was panicked that she would look bad to her boss, etc. I never moved or took the nametag, but the whole time I knew where it was. She never found it and had to get a new one. She also never paid the back rent and we kicked her out a few weeks later. I used to deliver pizza for Domino's. It was my last shift and there was this house that was always rude. I called to ask what the house looked like and they said I gave you the address and hung up, never tipped, etc. I got to their house and they gave me a check for 1 cent less than what the total was. I said I'm going to need the extra penny. They grumbled off and took their time hoping I would give up, but I just sat there holding the pizza. They finally came back all pissed off and gave me the penny. Note that they had no intention of tipping. They gave me the penny and I chucked it out into the street and left. They saw me do it. It was satisfying. During my freshman year of high school I was in a biology class that was made up of mainly juniors. This one guy, who sat next to me, would always be a jerk to me during class. I always did well on the tests, so he would always look over and copy the answers from my Scantron. I'm pretty sure he didn't realize that I knew he was cheating off of me. Well, one day I got fed up with this guy messing with me and cheating off of me. So the next test comes around and sure enough he starts copying my answers. I finish each test and so does he. He gets up and turns his test in and comes back to his seat. I looked him in the eyes and proceeded to erase my entire Scantron. I then retook the test, this time marking the correct answers. The look of panic in his eyes was so satisfying. He ended up making a 2% on that test and never cheated off me again. You jungans here might not believe it, but back in the early 90s, supermarket cashiers had to type every price in by hand. I was at a Vons in San Diego, walking toward the only open check stand with a single bottle of soda in my hand. Suddenly this hobbity-totty lady with a cart, stacked to the top, flew out of one of the aisles like a freight train and cut me off. "I'm in a hurry," she said, then looked away like she was annoyed that I'd been born. I looked at the cashier. He rolled his eyes and got to work. 5 minutes later she's walking out the door and it's my turn. "You're good," says the cashier. "I put your soda on her tag." Damn, that felt good. When I was a senior in high school, I was in a group English project with 2 other people. We had to read the assigned book, and over the course of a month or so we had several mini projects to do before the final presentation. These mini projects were designed so that each person would be covering a different section of the book, and they would all be combined for the finished product. The night before the first mini project was due, I learned that neither one of my group members planned on putting any more effort into the project than spark notes and bullshit. I ended up pulling several all-nighters trying to just get a passing grade. Fast forward to the day of our final presentation. We were going to be the last group to present, putting us after the lunch break in the middle of class. What I hadn't told anyone was that I was going to the blood drive that our school was having during lunch to donate. I go, donate. ADN spent a couple minutes making sure I'm not going to pass out afterwards. I come back to the classroom and find my group halfway through the prezi I had made for the presentation. Apparently they had been floundering, making shit up on the fly, and making it very clear to everyone that they had never read the book or had any idea WHT the duck was going on. Teacher has her head in her hands. I walk back in, and my group says, "Oh, thank God he's back." I restart the prezi, give the presentation, and took my seat. Explained what happened to the teacher after class. Got a passing grade. 90% sure they failed.